In today's video, I'm going to talk about why January is the worst possible time to start your new year, especially for women. And I want to explain why spring is the best time to reset, set your goals, create a new identity, and start fresh because that's what nature had intended for us. If you actually want to look and feel your best by summertime and build something that compounds way up until 2027, then you need to start at the right time. And that time is in January. It's spring. Hey there, I'm Samira. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I talk about feminine energy, mindset, and rebuilding your life in a way that actually works for women without the burnout and extremes. If you're drawn for a change in your life, I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. Every single year when spring turns into summer, women feel the exact same regret. I wish I stayed consistent. I wish I felt better in my body. I wish I didn't fall off in January. And it happens every single year. And instead of questioning the timing of the reset, we start questioning ourselves and just feel like, you know what, I give up for the rest of the year. But here's what nobody's talking about. January might be the worst possible time to demand transformation from yourself. And if you keep starting in the coldest, most darkest time of the year, you're going to repeat the same cycle every summer. Now, and real quick, before we dive in, if you're tired of hustling and have this strong calling to slow down, I've created a free 7-day self-life workbook challenge. It's a simple but powerful way to start shifting your habits and energy in alignment with the woman you deserve to become. You can check it out in the link below. For the past few years, I've been questioning why women are operating the way they are and why it's not working for us. And this starts with, the way we're not working with our cycles, the way we're not working out and aligned with our bodies, the way we're not eating the way we're eating is not in tune with how our bodies function, and just how, I'm going to sound like Andrew Tate out here, but how the system is working against us. This is me pushing for women's rights. Okay. So one thing I'm starting to realize is that the whole notion of starting your new year during January in the middle of winter, the darkest time, the coldest time, here we are setting goals, starting fresh in the most difficult time to really start new goals. For me, I've realized that when it comes to starting the new year in January and setting goals, I start really strong. No excuses, I'm committed, this is my year. But when February comes around, it gets really hard to be consistent, to persevere, and just have that same motivation and ambition that I had back in December when we were all setting goals, because the energy was there. It's like a holiday. When you go out shopping, there's, planners and New Year's, and you have all this content out there about reinventing yourself and, new energy. But does it really feel like new energy? Does it really feel like it's a fresh time to start something new? Especially for me, I live in Canada, where it's really cold and really dark and really hard to see yourself as this new identity. It's really difficult. And the problem that I have is that a lot of women start falling off their goals starting February, and then March comes around and they start feeling like something's wrong with them. And then summer comes around, and my God, I had all these goals back in January. I'm nowhere close to my goals, whether it's physical or, work or anything that you've set for yourself. You find yourself already slacking, nowhere close to what you had intended in January. And summer comes around where you want to look and feel your best, but you're nowhere close to it, and you just feel crap up until the end of the year again, and you start again in January. It's kind of like the New Year's resolutions, no one stays consistent and always falls off. I don't know what the percentage is, but almost over 50%, or even I would say over 80%, people fall off their New Year's resolution and it just doesn't work. So the more I've been thinking about this, I just feel like January is a very forced way to start the year. It's forced upon us. And as I'm paying attention to how women operate and what's in tune with our femininity and what comes natural to us, it works against us. You commit, you push, you override how you feel. It's very outcome driven. It's no excuses. But like I said, this is what we ignore. It's the darkest time of the year. The days are short, and naturally your body just works slower in the wintertime. That's how we're set up. Because looking back throughout history, and how, people have operated before the time of technology and how things got easier, winter was a time of conservation. You're trying to start new goals and push yourself into something new when you should be conserving your energy, reflecting, and just taking it easy. We pretty much expect peak performance during the most contracted season of the year. Think about it. Nothing blooms in January. Nature does not rush, but we freaking do, and then wonder why we keep falling off our goals. You may have done all this work back in December and January, and you're thinking, I put in all this work, I have to start over again. Not necessarily. We all have this big energy of setting big goals and really committed with the masculine way of doing things. However, I want you to think as a woman from here on out that January, February is a soft launch, and seeing how you're trying it out and just seeing how well it's working for you. It's incubation, not execution. You have to admit, winter is reflective energy, not reinvention energy. Now let's talk about the energy of spring. Something energetically shifts out there. The light changes, the days get longer. You literally see growth happening around you. Spring in itself, energetically, is not about force. It's a response. And something I want us women to use for our benefit, there's something psychologically powerful about visible expansion. Your environment changes, your energy changes, your body changes. Spring literally supports that growth, whereas winter demands a whole lot of willpower. So instead of asking yourself, why can't I stay disciplined in January? What if your real new year starts in March? Now, in the rise of modern society, I always advocate for women to work with their bodies and not against it. And somewhere along the way, we stopped doing that. Before electricity was invented and before, we got to where we are today, humans had no choice but to work when there was daylight. Even the agricultural industry had to follow seasons. Winter had this built-in slowness. You had no choice but to stay in and just stay put and conserve your energy. But now we have artificial light, 24/7 productivity, a phone that constantly robs your attention, a job that demands a response the day of, a no excuses mindset. And because of this, we override exhaustion, we ignore our rhythms, and then when we burn out, we treat it like weakness. I truly don't think women are inconsistent. I just think we've been trained to override our cycles. Let's talk a little bit about the symbolism of spring. There's a reason why spring has been symbolized for renewal for a reason. It's the celebration of new life. Trees are blooming, flowers are blooming left and right. You literally see new life come into fruition. It's almost like a clean slate. Like in winter, everything dies and is just bare. But when spring comes around, you see everything just bloom into this beautiful new creation. And it kind of gives you the symbolism of hope of like light returning into your life. Now, in a lot of other cultures around the world, they do celebrate New Year's in spring. For me, culturally, Afghans, Iranians, Kurds celebrate New Year's during this time called Nowruz. They celebrate the spring equinox renewal. In a lot of Asian cultures, they celebrate Lunar New Year, celebrating seasonal transition. Nature recognized the power of light and starting the symbolic season of a fresh new start, and ancient calendars honored that. So the whole point isn't to overteach you about this is how other cultures do it. Now just look into how our existing calendar even was created. It's honestly so dumb. Whenever you look into why we start the new year in January and it in December, you're just like slumped back and it's like, wait a minute. This is why the Roman year originally started in March, but then for some political and administrative reasons, it got pushed back to January, which is not the best time for human transformation, especially women transforming into their best selves. I remember a few years ago, a lot of people out there were starting to do a reset or a lock-in in September. This gave them a head start to start, going after their goals before the New Year's hit. And it was just this, it became like this cultural shift where anyone that was into self-development started locking in September. For me, I realized that the September reset worked so well for me, way better than I had ever did when I reset my time of the year in January. There was like a structural shift to it. There was like back to school energy. It was a transitional season. And I realized that you could just reset anytime. But I've noticed that spring makes the most sense in terms of resetting and going after your goals during this time of the year. Now that I've explained why spring is a better time to start your new year, here's how I want you to go about it. Instead of following the rigid masculine way of setting goals, no excuses, linear, outcome driven, I want you to view this season of life as an experimentation. I want you to start treating your goals like an experiment. Because think about it. The masculine way is that you set goals, and if you don't hit the exact mark, you failed. You missed out. However, if you treat it like an experiment, if you didn't get the exact outcome that you wanted, you instead gather data. And to me, that's relieving. I realize now what doesn't work for me now, and taking that data, I'm going to use that for the next time I attempt. Like, hey, the way I went about this last time didn't work for me. Let me try it again this way. You might be thinking this is such a waste of time, but in reality, you honestly don't know the exact route to get to your goal. Everyone's different, everyone operates different, the circumstances are different. And until you do trial and error in how you go about goals, you will not figure out what works for you as time progresses. The reason why I want you to experiment is because the information that's out there is not prescribed for everybody. You know, everyone's different, especially women. And what you hear may work for that person might not necessarily work for you. And the only way you will know that this way of doing things doesn't work is by you experimenting, trying it out. Like some women do better when they sleep in. Let me give you an analogy of what I'm trying to get at. January feels like this intense baking competition. Bear with me. There's a clock, there's pressure, and there's a prize. You have this intense pressure for you to win this competition, and it's just like go. Now, I want you setting goals in spring to feel like you're baking in your own kitchen, humming, tasting, adjusting. Approaching it in a feminine way is like, no, I wonder how it would taste if I add this type of fruit in the cake. And while you're just taking your time experimenting in the kitchen, of trying new fruits in the cakes to see what tastes really good, you're in this energy of being curious, iterative, aligned, and sensory. Instead of declaring like, this is who I am now, go, I want you to start your new goals in this time of the year with, let me test this out for 30 days. Let's say you're a content creator or you want to start it, and you kind of challenge yourself to do 12 weeks of posting. This is around 90 days or 3 months and 12 weeks. It's less pressure. It's not an end all and be all. And it just makes it feel a little easy to go after that goal because you're just experimenting, you're learning. And in that time, you are actually showing up, whereas you would have never shown up that way if you made it in a more hustle, if you approached it with a more hustling, do or die kind of approach. Let's say another example is that you want to get into walking more and you do a walking experiment and you want to try, let's say you want to add 1,000 steps every week for 12 weeks. Like you start with 5,000, then you get to 6,000, you get to 7,000, and by the time that summer comes around, you have mastered 10K steps or even have gone over it at that time because it was very slow and gradual and it was just an experiment. And at that point, I'm 100% sure that you have reached your goal because you're just experimenting and you saw the transformation in your legs. You're like, whoa, I was just experimenting, but look at my legs now. This whole way of reframing how to set goals and starting it at the start of spring makes it so easy, so natural, less pressure driven, and honestly really aligned with how women operate. You're not competing, you're calibrating. So when growth becomes research instead of identity, it becomes lighter. For me personally, I'm not trying to have the perfect 2026. That was me a few years ago and I burned and crashed many times over that. I never got to where I wanted with that kind of mentality. Now, I have this new approach of just moving the needle. With this whole notion of just moving the needle, just make sure that I show up at least by a little bit once a day. This has helped me become so consistent. It has helped me keep my priorities in straight because I'm just focused on moving the needle with something that's important. And I find myself wanting to show up every day. I'm not hitting that wave of motivation, falling off, and then having to get back up again. So I want you to stop obsessing over having the best year ever and instead use spring to have the best summer. Because eventually, spring becomes compounding. It's a seasonal calibration and it's small aligned expansion, no overnight reinvention. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. I want you to start treating winter as a time to reflect. I want you to start treating spring as a time to experiment. And then when summer comes around, based on what you've experimented and you saw what works for you and what doesn't, you expand on that. And when fall comes around, based on where you are in your goals, you refine, reflect, experiment, expand, and refine. So this year, I'm starting my new year in spring, not because January is wrong, but because I want to move in season. I'm tapping into my feminine energy. So ultimately, you don't need to push any harder. You don't need to feel bad if you've already fallen off your goals, because I'm sure a lot of people have already fallen the goals that they've started in January. I just want you to move with your body. I just want you to stop competing with winter and start the fresh new year in spring and just see how that works for you. Experiment. If you're like me and believe that spring should be the start of the new year, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've enjoyed this video, I would love for you to check out my other videos on my channel. And if you haven't already, I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. And once again, thank you for watching. Bye.